Hey, Salvador Briggman here. Welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified YouTube channel. And today we're talking about how to start a business and specifically the steps that you gotta take if you wanna start a successful business. We're talking about that all in today's video. Let's get right into this. This is the format, if you will, the step-by-step process for starting a service-based business or a product-based business. I'm gonna kind of break this down into two different sort of areas, because a good way to think of this is if you're doing a tech startup, you have three different types of people that make up a company. You have a hacker, a hustler, and a designer. So the hacker is the engineer, the person who's making the functional prototype, that's deciding what to make this product out of, how to build out the functionality, how to execute on that. Then you have the hustler, the person who's selling this actively, marketing it, generating interest, generating demand, generating leads. They're actually selling the product and positioning this in a way that is appealing to the masses. And then you have the designer, person who's creating the designing, the packaging, the look and the feel, just kind of the overall the brand experience, the design of the product. And this is kind of two different types of mindsets in my opinion. You have actually like the engineering kind of logic side of the brain, and you have more of like the emotional side when it comes to marketing and sales and people skills and personality and psychology. So let's talk a little bit about building this out. So for a service or a product-based business, I'm gonna focus a little bit more on the product side because a lot of my audience is interested in that. You're initially gonna start out with building the prototype or testing out the services. You know, the prototype could be the functional prototype, meaning it could actually do what it is you say, or it could be a non-functional prototype and just kind of like, how does this feel in your hand? What is the look, the size, like dimensions, these different things. We're gonna first start as the engineer's mindset, building the prototype, building the design files, design files of if you want this to get this made, what are the dimensions of this? What is this made of? You're building the initial prototype, and this is where a lot of entrepreneurs will get started with actually building this thing and testing it out with their friends and getting some feedback that way. But also, I would say that many of the entrepreneurs that I speak with, they actually create a product which solves a problem that at one point in time, they themselves experienced. They saw this product, this problem happening somewhere, and they created a solution to address that problem. Or they experienced a problem in their own life. Maybe they're like a backpacker, or they love going out there and going hiking on trails, and they discover that it's really difficult with the existing backpacks that are out there, so they made their own. That's usually where the initial prototype or design files come from. This is sort of like the engineering mindset, I would say. Engineering, where you're thinking about what it is made of and the dimensions. On this side, you have to do the research. This is the first step of the business. You have the prototype, you design files, but if you don't do the research, what could end up happening would be you build this product, you get it out there, and no one buys it. You spend all this money, you spend all this time, you get this thing out there, but no one actually buys the product. And this is where the research comes in, the more business, psychological, analytical side on there. Instead of thinking about the product and what you're building, you're thinking about who would actually want to buy that product. Now, for a few different decision mechanisms. The first is, what is the problem that this product solves, and what are the alternative solutions that are already out there in the marketplace? We'll say alternative solutions. The second is, how much do people care about this problem? Meaning, are they willing to spend money on a solution to the problem? And number three is, how many people out there constitute this number of individuals who suffer from the problem and are willing to spend money in order to acquire the solution to that problem. So the reason why a lot of these people will not get past the next stage, or they create a product and it doesn't have any kind of connection with the marketplace, is number one, they created a product that does not solve a problem. Number two, there's not enough, there's too many people out there in the marketplace where they don't have a unique enough product or unique selling proposition where this product does something 10 times better, or it's way more better designed, or better quality materials or something. It's not enough differentiation from the alternative solutions. The other would be that people just don't, they do suffer from the problem maybe, but they don't care to spend money to actually address this problem. It's like, yeah, I do suffer that problem. Oh yeah, I could see how that could be a good idea. But when it comes down to it, they're not willing to spend money on the product, or at least at that price point, in order to have a sustainable business. And that way, they don't care enough about the problem or about solving it. And finally, you have the number of people in this marketplace or the number of people who might care about the solution. If you have a too small of a marketplace, number one, other businesses are going to be competing for that small market size, the number of people out there. But also, if you have a really small marketplace, it's going to be hard to find those people out there online. Enough people to generate a self-sustaining business and one that can be propelled and continue to grow in the future. So you want to think a little bit about this. Your product, don't just go out there and create your prototype, which is, I think you should take action, you should do that, but also do the research, look at alternative solutions, look at whether or not people are willing to spend money on those solutions, and finally, the number of people in that marketplace. That's going to be the first step for starting a business. The next step has to do with getting a little bit more serious about how do we go from just having one prototype to getting this out there into the hands of many different people. So this is going to be manufacturing, this is going to be shipping, and fulfillment. How do we get not just one product, but many different products, hundreds or thousands of products into the hands of people out there? You're going to be doing stuff like you're going to be going to factories and figuring out where are we going to source the different components of this product. You're going to be looking at the logistics, the supply chain. Where is this going to ship from? Is it going to ship to the United States and then ship somewhere else? Or what if the customers are international? And the whole fulfillment and packaging and like these different things, that branding side of the experience. I want to take a second to introduce you to the sponsor of today's video, and that is Fulfillment. Fulfillment is a turnkey solution for helping you get the products out there to your customers and to your backers. Whether you're doing a Kickstarter campaign or an Indiegogo campaign, eventually you're going to have to do order fulfillment and get those rewards out there into the hands of your backers. So what these guys do is they basically offer a streamlined service for you, and they take all that headache away. I highly recommend outsourcing this element of your campaign because it's going to make everything easier in the future. If you want to learn more about Fulfillment, I'm going to include a link down below in the description of this YouTube video. But in addition, you can also check it out on the web at fulfillrite.com, and you can learn more there. Thanks for listening, and let's get back to the video. This is where you start to turn this thing a little bit more into a real business, because you're actually then starting to set up the systems that are required to have a foundation of a successful business. Thinking about the manufacturing, where are we going to get manufactured? What is it going to be made out of? How are we going to get these components together? How are we going to get this to be on someone's doorstep? They can open their door and they can get this. They can look at the product. They can then show it to their friends. They can take photos. They can post it on Instagram. This is the side of the manufacturing and shipping, kind of in line with the engineering. And also at the same time, from the psychology standpoint, you're then starting to think more seriously about the marketing of said product. You can have a killer product. It can be, 5 times better than anything else out there. But if you don't know how to market it effectively, if you don't know how to get the word out there about it and people to listen to you and be interested in it with effective copy and video and images, which I'll get into in a second, you are not going to have very many sales. So marketing, I'm talking about, taking really good video of people using the product, or images or GIFs, these different things. Thinking about the storytelling behind this product, the brand behind the product, and also generating leads. How are you going to go out there? You're going to get people interested in even discovering a little bit more information about the product and about the business. That is when you begin to think more seriously about marketing this particular product. And if you do this right, you're gonna get to the next stage. But before we get into the next stage, this is kind of where I see my work fitting in a lot with different project creators. So when you are basically trying to do this area, this manufacturing, fulfillment, and these different things, you then start to run into this fact that, you might have to have a really big order quantity in order to actually get this thing off the ground. And that's where crowdfunding comes in. Because with a crowdfunding campaign, let's just say on Kickstarter or Indiegogo, you can say, look, I got this incredible idea, here's the prototype, here's some really good video, a pitch of the product, look at the images, look at all this stuff, look at how cool this thing is using your marketing. You can throw that up there on Kickstarter or Indiegogo. You can then get the funding that you need to go out there and to fulfill the minimum order quantity. In addition, you get the validation. It's not just in your head anymore that you're doing your research, okay, this maybe is a good problem, this is a good marketplace. You actually are tangibly getting people to financially commit that they want to pre-order this product. So you're getting the funding, you're getting the validation, you're getting the initial tribe of customers or early adopter supporters that are enthusiastic about your project. Eventually you're gonna get some feedback when you actually give this to them, you actually ship this out to them. You're also getting some media attention, connecting with other partners. It's a whole crowdfunding event. You know, a typical crowdfunding campaign is going to be 30 days to 45 days long, and you're probably preparing, I'd say, 3 to 6 months ahead of that. So the crowdfunding fits in here, usually at this stage of starting a product-based business, or sometimes in some cases a service-based business. And this is one of the ways you can sort of get to the next level. Now, if you don't do that and you have a big minimum order quantity, you could, of course, continue to self-fund the business. Usually from step 1 to step 2, you're either self-funding the business, you're having some family and friends investors, or you're using debt in some way, you know, credit cards or other types of forms of debt, in order to get to this stage where you have a good prototype and you're starting to start talking with manufacturers and these different things. You're starting to get even some video and high quality photos of the prototype. Next, when you're getting the crowdfunding, you don't have to necessarily do crowdfunding, but what you do have to do is set up this whole thing where you could end up having lots and lots of inventory. You got to go out there and you got to accumulate this inventory so that you can actually fulfill all of the orders that you're going to get from a successful marketing campaign. You run a crowdfunding campaign, you get 1,000 supporters, let's just say, you then have to ship this out there to them. If you don't do a crowdfunding campaign, you still are doing the marketing, you're still doing some kind of a launch, you get a bunch of customers, now you got to fulfill those orders, and you need the money in order to do that. I think that where crowdfunding comes in terms of a pro is that you don't want to be sitting on like all of this inventory. So the cool thing about a campaign is you can run a campaign. If it's not successful, you don't have to go out there and actually acquire all this inventory, versus if you didn't run a campaign, you have all this inventory you're sitting on and you have to figure out how to sell it. And maybe it's not connecting as well with the actual marketplace. Now the next step here, after sort of progressing through, we'll say this kind of a framework, would be really the scaling up and the growing of the company. So after you've delivered the product here, getting feedback, using that to inform further iterations of the product, getting testimonials, finding bridge capital. You can raise capital, you can get investors here if you're seeing demand. And also I would say on this side, continue to reinvest in the product and scaling up your marketing with ads. This is kind of where your business begins to take off, and you invest in what is working. This is how you're transitioning from having an idea in your mind, doing the research, to having real world data, real people buying this, and actually satisfying a need in the marketplace. So in terms of the ways that can help you going forward, if you are interested in crowdfunding, I invite you to dive into this channel. If you want to get started right away, you can book a one-on-one coaching call with me, which I'll link down below. I also have a book out there called The Kickstarter Launch Formula, which goes really in depth into crowdfunding and how to have a successful launch. But just think a little bit about this, and also think about some of the stuff that I told you, and give me a thumbs up if you found this video and this step-by-step process to be helpful for you. Come subscribe if you want more content on crowdfunding. And finally, I would love it if you leave a question or a comment down below. My name is Salvador Briggman, and I will see you next time.